will now discuss all about root for bones and joint. The root of the medical word is usually body part, and joint is an area where two or more bones come together. And we have 5 types of bones: flat bones, long bones, short bones, and irregular bones, and the last is sesamoid bones. An example of joint is elbow, knee, and ankle. And the next is oster or osteo. Ang osteo or osteoporosis ay paghina ng mga buto ng katawan. For example, ito yung mga kulang ng calcium sa katawan at ito yung mga matatanda na.
Good day everyone. So I will be the one who will discuss the medical terminologies of miel or mielo and condor or chondro. So miel or mielo is a combining form that refers to bone marrow or spinal cord. So bone marrow consists of soft spongy tissue that has many blood vessels, and it is found at the center of most bones such as the crest of the ilium or iliac crest, the sternum, and skull. The spinal cord is the lengthy, cylinder-shaped structure that links your brains and lower back. Here, we can see the structure of bone marrow. In the pelvic bone, we have the compact bone, which is the outer part of the bone, the spongy bone or likely soft bone, and the bone marrow inside the spongy bone. So, sino na ang nakakain ng bulalo? Yon, madalas ang masarap kainin dun is yung bone marrow. But it is the best example for yellow marrow or the fatty tissue. Bone marrow is either red or yellow depending upon the preponderance of hematopoietic red or fatty yellow tissue. In humans, the red bone marrow form all of the blood cells with the exception of the lymphocytes, which are produced in the marrow and reach their mature form in the lymphoid organs. There is one other sense of myeloid that means pertaining to the spinal cord, but it is much less commonly used. Next is myeloid. So, what is myeloid? Myeloid tissue is a tissue of bone marrow cell lineage or resembling bone marrow. So, in here, as you can see, we also have the myeloid cells, which is derived from the hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow. Myeloid lineage cells include all blood cells except lymphoid cells. During hematopoiesis in humans, cells of the myeloid lineage are derived from common myeloid progenitor in the bone marrow. This lineage, which includes monocytes, granulocytes, erythrocytes, and platelets, is a primary component of the innate immune system and serves as a first line of defense against infection. Examination of the bone marrow is helpful in diagnosing certain diseases, especially those related to blood and blood-forming organs, because it provides information on iron stores and blood production. Next is condor or chondro. It's a combining form that refers to cartilage. So, cartilage is a tough, flexible connective tissue that cushions joints and bones. As a result, it serves as a shock absorber in and around the entire body. Bone cartilage reduces friction and keeps bones from rubbing together when the joints move. So, chondroblasts, also known as perichondrial cells, are cells that play an important role in the formation of cartilage, chondrogenesis. It secretes the extracellular matrix, which is composed of various substances, including collagen, proteoglycans, glycoproteins, hyaluronic acid, water, and macromolecules. So, chicken feet is one example that composed of collagen and cartilage. Provide strength and support in developing cartilage, mature in chondrocytes. So, chondroblasts carry out the development, maintenance, growth and homeostasis of the cartilage tissue. It also gives rise to a chondrocyte, a cartilage cells. Unregulated growth and stimulation of chondroblasts can result in chondroblastoma, benign tumor, or a chondrosarcoma, malignant tumor. Thank you.
Now, let's dive into the term artery or artery. Artery is a term that originates from the Greek word artery, which means joints. In the medical field, artery is often used as a prefix to indicate something related to joints. The example of artery is arthrosis. Arthrosis, also known as osteoarthritis, is a common joint disorder that affects millions of people worldwide. It is characterized by degeneration of joint cartilage in the underlying bone, leading to pain, stiffness, and reduced joint mobility. Arthrosis can result from combination of factors including age, genetics, joint injuries, and obesity. Over time, the protective cartilage in the joint breaks down, causing pain and discomfort. Next is synovial or synovial, is a medical term for synovial fluid or synovial membrane. It is a clear, viscous liquid found in the cavities of synovial joints. Its primary purpose is to lubricate and nourish the joint, promoting smooth and pain-free movement. And synovial fluid also acts as the shock absorber, reducing friction and wear and tear on the articular cartilage within the joint. This feature is specifically important in weight-bearing joints like the knees and hips. The example of synovial is a synovia. Synovia is a condition that occurs when there is a deficiency or impairment in the production of synovial fluid. This can be significant consequences on joint health. A synovia can result from various factors such as injuries, autoimmune diseases, or infections. When synovial fluid is insufficient or compromised, joints may become stiff or painful and more prone to damage.
Bursa or bursae in plural is like a small soft sack filled with a special liquid. Makikita natin ang bursa malapit sa ating joints like in our knees or elbows. The main function of bursa is to reduce the friction between tissues like muscles, tendons, and bones during movement. Now, the example of this is peribursal, which refers to the tissue or structure that surrounds the bursa. Peribursal is like a protective layer around the bursa, providing support and helping bursa to keep in place. Peribursal plays a role in maintaining the function and integrity of the bursa in our body. The bursa and peribursal work as a team to make sure that our joints move smoothly and without any problems. They are like our body helpers for easy and comfortable movement.
So I'll be discussing the first medical terminology, roots for the skeleton, which is the crani or cranio. It is the combining form that refers to a skull or cranium. The skull consists of the bones that make up the head. The cranium is the area of the skull composed of the bones containing the brain, excluding the bones of the face and jaw. So everyone, what does our skulls do and why is it important? Its purpose is to protect our brain and allow attachments for the facial muscles. Generally, when describing the skull, we divide it into two parts: the neurocranium and the splanchocranium. Neurocranium, basically known as neurocranium, the skull is an entity in itself It is a jigsaw puzzle of irregular bones and very specific puzzle edges that combine to form a masterpiece. It is a helmet for the brain and a scaffold for the face. Even though the bones are separated by very narrow and shallow jagged sutures, the skull is not divided by every single point of articulation, but by the areas that are created via these bony connections. While splanchocranium, which is also known as splanchocranium, a visceral arches that support and move the gills and contribute to production of the jaws in gnatostomes. Generally, 7 visceral arches grows to support the developing pharyngeal pouches that are formed during early embryonic development.
Spondylum. It is a combining form that refers to vertebra. It is used in medical terminology to describe conditions related to the vertebra. Example of spondylum. Spondylolysis is a medical condition that refers to a defect or fracture in the pars interarticularis, which is a small bony arch that connects the facet joints of the vertebrae in the spine. This condition is most commonly found in the lower back or in lumbar spine and can cause lower back pain. Spondylolysis usually occurs into children between the ages of 5 and 7. It is sometimes called the gymnastic fracture because it is associated with sports that require a lot of bending backwards. It is thought that repetitive stress on the spine has a cumulative effect that causes the pars interarticularis to break. Next is the vertebro. A vertebro is any separated segment that comprising the spine or the vertebral column. The vertebrae support the body and provide the protective bony corridor or the spinal or vertebral canal through which the spinal and cord passes. There are 7 cervical vertebrae located in the neck labeled C1 to C7, 12 thoracic vertebrae in the mid and upper back labeled T1 to T12. There are 5 lumbar, which are vertebrae on the lower back labeled L1 to L5. These 24 vertebrae that are articulate with each other and they're mobile. Ito yung mga gumagalaw. And the sacral vertebrae and the bones of the coccyx are fused. Ito yung mga hindi gumagalaw. Example of vertebro, paravertebral, refers to something that is situated, occurring, or performed beside or adjacent to the spinal column. The paravertebral muscle are a set of muscles that run all the way along the back of the spine and produce most movements of the vertebral column. Paravertebral is also an adjacent means along the vertebral column.
I am Mary Jane Natilas and I will discuss the rachio and the costode. So let's start. Rachio is a combining form meaning spine or backbone. So it pertains to our vertebral column. So it is the vertebral column, the picture on the side. So it comes from the Latinized form of Greek rachis, meaning spine or back. Metaphorically, ridge of a mountain or rib of a leaf. So nakuha daw siya sa word Greek word na rachis, meaning spine or back. And meron din siyang meaning metaphorically na ridge of a mountain or rib of a leaf. So doon na kinuha yung idea na rachis, yung word na rachio or rakay. So let's move on to the examples. So the examples are rachitis. So rach means the rachai or rach means spine, and the itis is the inflammation. So if we combine it together, the meaning of this word is the inflammation of the spine. Rachitis is the inflammation of the spine. So next is the rachialgia or raciodynia. Means yung algia means pain or ache, and the dynia means pain din lang. Magkaparehas lang sila. So if we will combine it together, rachialgia or raciodynia means spine pain or pain in the spine. Pain in the spine, yes. Next is the rachiotomy. So rachiotomy, the tomy is kinuha siya sa ectomy, which means the incision. Yung tinuro sa atin noon ni Sir Joshua, which is the ectomy, is the incision, and the if we will combine it together, it means rachiotomy, incision into the spine. Ectomy or tomy comes from the incision, and tinanggal yung ectomy because yung tinuro nga ni Sir, if we combine it together, tatanggalin yung vowel, and then it will become parang mas maganda siyang pakinggan. So rachiotomy is the incision into the spine. So next is the rachiometer. Sa rachiometer naman is, meter is the instrument to measure. So ito yung instrument for measuring, meter. If we will combine it together, so rachiometer means instrument to measure spinal curvature. So may may meaning siya, may if we will combine it together, may ibang meaning na siya. And parang nag-combine lang din yung meaning nito and meaning ng root word and the suffix natin. So rachiometer is the instrument to spinal curvature. Next is rachis. If I don't know if rachis or rachis is this. So ischisis means fissure, and if we will combine it together, fissure, rachis or rachis means fissure of the spine, or tinatawag natin na spina bifida. So next is the costo. So costo means rib. So ito yung andun sa costal region ng natin dito, sa ribs natin. So costo is a combining form used like a prefix meaning rib. It is often used in medical terms, especially in anatomy and pathology. So yun nga, the meaning of the costo is rib. So ang kahulugan niya is rib, dun sa rib cage natin. So ito yung kadalasan siya ay prefix siya. So ginagamit siya sa unahan ng medical term natin or medical terminology natin. So costo comes from the Latin word costa, meaning rib side. Rib or side. The word costa was borrowed directly into the English as a term for a rib, among other senses. The Latin costa is also source of the word coast. So, yung costa daw, nanggaling siya sa Latin word na costa, na ang meaning ay rib or side. So, ang source din ng costa na word is the word coast. So, kinuha din yung costa na Latin word sa word na coast. So, yun. Basta ang tatandaan lang po natin is costo is rib. Costo means rib. Next. So, the examples of costo, example of medical terms na ginagamitan ng costo is the costochondrial, pertaining to a rib and its cartilage. So, costo meaning rib, andun na yung costo. Yung chondrial naman or chondro means cartilage. So, kapag pinagsama natin yung dalawang yan, it pertains to a rib and its cartilage. So, next is costochondritis. So, alam naman natin yung itis, which is inflammation. Chondro is cartilage. Costo, which means in coastal region or in our rib cage. So, alam na natin kung saan yun, kung ano yung sakit na yun. So, costochondritis, inflammation of the costal cartilage. So, yun naman. Always remember po, rakai means spine or backbone. Basta narinig niyo po yung rakai or rachio means alam na po agad natin na spine or backbone po yun. And then, if we heard the costal means rib. So, thank you.
The sarc or sarco came from the Greek word sark or sarx, which means flesh. The sacrum is located between the right and left iliac or hip bones and form the back of the pelvis. The sacrum, along with the coccyx and two sacroiliac joints, make up the pelvic girdle. Example of a sacrum is the presacral. The presacral space in the area between the rectum and lowest part of your spine ay tinatawag nating sacrum. The presacral space is inside the pelvis, behind the rectum and in front of the coccyx and the sacrum. Normally, it is empty or it contains a packet of fat. The word coccyx is derived from the Greek word for the beak of cuckoo bird because of the similarity in appearance when the latter is viewed from the side. The coccyx or the tailbone is located just below the sacrum. Though it is much smaller than the sacrum, it too has important weight or the bearing rope. The coccyx helps support your weight while you sit. If you lean back while sitting, such as reclining in a chair, the pressure in your coccyx increases. Example of a coccyx is the coccygeal vertebra that contains a BNC or boron neutron capture therapy, a radiation science that is very helpful in treating cancer, that involves the medullary cavity and extends through the cortex into the soft tissues by displacing the periosteum.
And now, we're down to the last two roots or base words for the skeleton. And it is the pelvi or the pelvio and the ili or the ilio. In here, we have the pelvi or the pelvo. Pelvi or pelvo is a combining form that refers to pelvis or the pelvic bone. As you can see on the figure down below, pelvis is a basin-shaped bone that supports the spinal column and protects the abdominal organs. It is responsible for supporting upper body weight. It is defined as the middle part of the human body between the lumbar region of the abdomen superiorly and thighs inferiorly. There are several parts to this bone that is discussed to us a while ago, and it is the sacrum, a spade-shaped bone, and the coccyx, that is also known as the tailbone. And now, let's move on to the three hip bones. It is referred to as the ilium, that will be discussed later on, the pubis, and the ischium. Together, the three form a cup-shaped socket known as the acetabulum.
It is a Latin word meaning vinegar cup. So the three hip bones form a cup shape as you can see on the figure. There are several examples of pelvo or pelvi or pelvia. One example of a term from anatomy that features the combining form pelvio is pelvioscopy. So pelvio is the pelvis, while the iscopy from our prelims lesson, it is the direct visualization. So all in all, pelvioscopy is the examination of the pelvis for any purpose, usually by endoscopy. Another example for this one is the pelviotomy. It is an outdated surgical procedure in which the cartilage of the pubic symphysis is divided to widen the pelvis, allowing childbirth when there is a mechanical problem. Pelviotomy is also known as symphysiotomy or the synchondrotomy. So let's proceed to the last root or base word, which is the ili or ilio. Ili or ilio is a combining form used like a prefix representing the word ilium. It is a bone that makes up the broad, upper portion of the hip bones. It is the large, flared superior portion of the pelvic bone. Ilio comes from the Latin ilium, meaning side or flank. So ilium is located to the each side of the pelvis. One example of a term from anatomy that features the combining form ilio is iliofemoral, relating to the ilium and the femur. The first part of the word ilio means ilium, as we know. As you may have guessed, the femoral portion of the word means relating to the femur, also known as the thigh bone. Iliofemoral then simply means relating to the ilium and the femur. Another example for this is iliococcygeus. It is a muscle of the pelvic floor. It forms the posterolateral part of the levator ani muscle group. Another example is the iliolumbar. The iliolumbar ligaments are crucial in supporting the lower lumbar spine. They join the fourth and fifth lumbar vertebrae or the L4 and L5 to the iliac bone crest at the back of the pelvis.